All right, you may start.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah. So, good morning, everyone. I'm in Verona right now, so it's bright and early my time. But yeah, I'm Lieutenant Luke Brannigan. I'm a naval officer with the Royal Canadian Navy. I'm an instructor at HMCS Venture out on the West Coast. I've been in the CAF for 15 years now. I've been in the Navy for about 8 of them. And I'm the Wargaming SME for the RCN. So, just a standard disclaimer, all the opinions are expressed mine, not the DND, Government of Canada, Canadian Armed Forces, RCN, or any other entity of the Canadian government. Everything, all the numbers you'll see is unclassed, and all the information has been pulled from open sources. So, just go through a few acronyms quickly. ASW is anti-submarine warfare, ASUW, anti-surface warfare, AEW, anti-air, and then NWO. NWO is our naval warfare officer, so the equivalent of a surface warfare officer in the US Navy. So HMCS Venture, who we are and what we do. We are the main professional body and the training institution for the Royal Canadian Navy. We have our naval bridge simulators there. We do innovation developments, second language training because we are a bilingual nation. We instruct French there as well. Naval technical officers, so our marine and combat systems engineers. We do basic military training, our senior NCO training, and then we've got an Indigenous leadership program as well. But kind of one of the main focuses is our naval warfare officer training. So we take CAF members right out, or members of the Royal Canadian Navy, right out of basic training. We've got a common basic training that Army, Navy, and Air Force all go to in St. John's, Richelieu, Quebec. After their 15 weeks there, they come out to Victoria and go through their naval warfare officer training. They'll go to the fleet. They'll come back. We do navigator training there. So our fleet navigating officers, those who specialize in navigation. And then we also do our command courses there. So those that are going to become COs of ships. So Naval Warfare Officer training up until fall 2025. So we just went through a big switch, but would get the students fresh out of basic training, depending on when they were scheduled for the next course. They may go on OJT or not. They would go on their NWO Phase 2, which is Introduction to the Navy, how to tie knots, firefighting, shooting, how to drive Zodiacs, all the fun stuff that people join the Navy for. They'd go to sea for a week, learn how to talk, all that good stuff. Coming out of Phase 2, they'd go into Phase 3, with again, if they had a delay, they would go do OJT. Um, Going on to Phase 3, that's where they start getting to learn the basic skills of being a naval warfare officer. So learn the skills of being an officer watching the bridge, how to con properly, maneuver the ship, respond to emergencies, manage your bridge team, as well as carry out formation maneuvers with other ships. So up to 4 ships operating in tight consort, maneuvering around each other. On completing that, they would again go on OJT if they've got a long gap. If not, they'd go on Naval Warfare Officer Phase 4, which is basic operations and warfare. So taking the skills they've learned in Phase 3, they'd go out and, conduct patrols in the water, learn how to RAS, so replenish at sheet, at sea, flight operations, as well as basic warfare tied into that. The majority of the time is spent in pilotage, so navigation in confined waters and coastal areas, and managing that bridge team and coming up with a navigation plan to keep the ship safe. Uh, During this original training, the wargaming, it was an official part, but we did have a Introduction to Naval Operations course, which was a 2-week long course that would be injected during their OJT phases. And then upon graduation from NO4, go off to the fleet, do all the bridge time. So Wargaming HCS Venture was established in November 2022 for junior naval officers. Actually, it all started, the seed was planted in the summer of 2022 after watching a video or seeing a presentation from the Royal Norwegian Naval Academy on on the YouTube channel here. So it's actually pretty nice to come full circle and complete the journey. So super excited about that. But yeah, so we kicked off our first kind of course, the Introduction to Naval Operations course for about 10 officers per course in November 2022. The whole reason for it was to introduce naval warfare and operations to junior officers, spark that professional curiosity. So if we could get one out of every 10 student or 10 videos that a student watched on YouTube to be about something to do with the maritime world, we're winning. And then instill wargaming culture into junior officers and with that within the RCN. So we hope that in the way we're trending, that the junior officers will, get wargaming as soon as they're out of basic training and remember through the rest of their career. And the way we've shaped our training now, there will be wargaming injects through basically their entire career. So we do use the Darby House principles. We're not a official sponsor of them, but we do support them because they tie in with the Canadian Armed Forces diversity and inclusion and everything that we're going for. So I don't think I have to explain them too much, but we do tie back to the Western Approaches Tactical Unit. So our Maritime Warfare Center out in Halifax can trace its lineage back to, sorry. No, pardon me, can trace its lineage back to the Derby House that was established there during the Second World War. So we can tie back all the history and then go back to the wargaming that WATU carried out and just show where the RN and the RCN has come from to where we are now. So the wargaming rules stole these from White Fight Club and modified them a bit. But rule one, talk about wargaming. Rule two, talk about wargaming. We want the students to share what they've learned. Unless they're, on red team, we don't want them talking to blue team. Again, the fight's out there, not in here. So zero discrimination, bullying, harassment, follow Derby House principles. When they fight, we want them to fight to win and not be afraid to fail. They either win or they learn. And I don't tell them this, but I could really care less if they finish the game. It's the discussions and the learning that goes along the way. That's the real objectives for me. And then again, share what they learn, see rule one and two. And then we want them to be unconventional, try new theories. Is a safe to fail environment. Repetition and experimentation lead to innovation. We're not just about better games. We want to improve our ability to think and be adaptive. So we're working on that OODA loop and developing it. It's like going to the gym. I'll steal this from Sebastian, but it's like going to the gym where you're working different muscle groups. Wargaming is like that for your brain. And in order to be better than our adversaries, we need to be able to come up with our plans and execute them faster. And above all, we want everyone to have fun while learning and be a better warfighter and human being. For the majority of my time in the military, I'm sure everyone else who's been in the military, if you're having fun, you cannot be learning. You have to be miserable when you're learning. So the fact that we can have fun doing wargaming and the students are learning, it's a win for sure. So just an example of the Introduction to Naval Operations course flex that we ran up until the summer of this year, so summer 2025. It was a 2-week long course. The first week was all based on tabletop, and then the second week was all computer based. So first day, introduction, would go over a quick battle procedure refresh, talk about planning, and then we'd have them execute a tactical exercise without troops/ships. And just so they can practice that planning, then we'd jump into an introduction scenario of our tabletop game, Naval Kriegspiel. Tuesday, would go through the history of wargaming and some open source resources for the students, how wargaming fits into the CAF, how the CAF's using it, and just kind of tracing it back all the way from Kriegspiel to where it is now. And then we'd have them plan for the first scenario, Naval Kriegspiel, and then they would execute that scenario in the afternoon. Wednesday would spend the full forenoon, or at least 2 hours of it, talking about WATU and watch a few YouTube videos on that and look at some of the tactics and war games they played. And then the rest of the forenoon was spent planning for the second scenario. They'd be getting given their orders, do the battle procedure. And then Wednesday afternoon and Thursday morning were all Naval Kriegspiel's second scenario. It was a much larger scenario, so it usually took 2 days. Sometimes it would even fall into the afternoon of the Thursday. And then Friday morning would do Aftershock, which is mandatory disaster response game, which I'll talk about a little bit later. And then would have in the afternoon a week one AAR, just talk about everything we've done. The second week was based around command modern operations. So start on Monday, would go through some of the basics of command to modern operations, and then the rest of the forenoon for the rest of the week, or the rest of the forenoons for the rest of the week, they would spend it running through command tutorials and then scenarios by themselves, and would stop every hour or two and just talk about what the scenarios there on, what problems they've been having, what they've kind of done to counter that and everything. In the afternoon, because when we first ran the course, we had them play command 7 hours a day, 5 days straight, and it turns out that's not enjoyable for anyone. So we would bring in SME lectures. So we'd have an influence operations brief, would bring down a JAG to talk about conduct of hostilities at sea and law of armed conflict. Would have a detect to engage brief. So how will we go from identifying a target to prosecuting it? Have a navigation warfare brief. These would be like people from the fleet or other government departments that these students who have usually only been in the military for, I don't know, between 3 weeks, or in the Navy, I should say, between 3 weeks and 6 months. So don't have a lot of experience with senior officers or more senior members of the service. It would give them a chance to get to discuss what they've learned so far and how it applies to their career and just ask about being in the Navy in general. Now, this is the block schedule. Obviously, the students wouldn't have a get to see that there's a surprise exam on Friday. What they would see is just more command modern operations scenarios, but they would walk in Friday morning. I'd have them all sit at their desks, and then I'd lay down a exam, and we'll talk more about that later on. And then Friday afternoon would be course party, AAR, and just kind of wrap everything up. So that's what we were doing. And now we have incorporated wargaming into our new NWO basic course. So previously, where we had the phase 2, 3, and 4 courses, those have all been amalgamated into one 31-week long course where we have 1 week fully dedicated to wargaming with a little bit of flex time there. So it's basically taken that first week of all the tabletop stuff, and that's what we're continuing to do now. So introduction, battle procedure refresh, and then tactical exercise with troops slash preparations for the first scenario. The second day, we've got the history of wargaming and resources, and then they prep for the first scenario, and then execute the first scenario the following or in the afternoon. Wednesday, it's all the second scenario. And Thursday morning is continuation of the second scenario. And then the Friday is the Warfare 101 brief where we kind of tie everything together, bring in some SMEs to talk about a few different things and just answer any final questions before sending them on their way. The world that we operate in, so we use a decisive action training environment for our adversaries. We've got this fictitious land based off the west coast of Canada. In the same geographical area, at least. We've got Northwestlandia and Southwestlandia. It's a NATO-aligned country, but not a NATO member. Karelia is a NATO member. Denovia to the north there is one of the adversaries. You can see the red line around the island of Haida Gwaii that they have annexed and occupied 14 to 15 years before the conflict where simulating takes place. Then you've got the People's Republic of Pikesburg and the Cascadian Liberation Front, which are both Denovian speakers and separatists that are being supported by Denovia, and Karelia and Northwestlandia have to deal with that. We've got undersea pipelines, undersea infrastructure, oil derricks, wind farms, just kind of all the different parts of the world that we could represent have been represented in this chart to kind of cover everything. And also, besides the inverted and upside down New Zealand, it is to get them used to the features of the west coast of Canada where they'll be operating. Um, we tie in, we've got a whole bunch of like lore basically that goes along with it. So we're giving injects to the students before they execute. We update the newspapers every day before the scenarios so they can kind of get a little, the story behind what's going on. Each scenario takes place about a month apart. So we inject tweets, have them posted up around the classroom. We're working on having like a rolling kind of social media feed using Copilot and Teams chat in the background. And we'll inject both like information operations and actual useful intelligence in there. But yeah, as we're going, we do have the kind of the bigger world being represented as well. I had a acting subaltern who was attached posted to me for 9 months, and this is all his hard work. Any of the AI kind of looking stuff, he developed all that. So I'm very thankful that he did because it's brought a lot more to the game and it gets a lot more buy-in from the students when they have this rest of the world kind of revolving around the battles that they're doing. Um, Yeah, so the Naval Kriegspiel is our main game. It's a Canadianized rules or Canadianized game based on a rule set we got from the Royal Norwegian Naval Academy in 2022. When I got it from them, it was about a half page long, and now it is about 12 to 14 pages, depending on which version there is. The game is designed to be played on any standard chart, so anywhere you can lay down a chart in a mess on a ship, wardroom, classroom, the game can be played. And then we have a massive 30-foot by 20-foot print of the chart around Vancouver Island that we push 3D models around, and naval officers get to live out there like Battle of the Atlantic Dream sort of thing. So we use the Naval Kriegspiel to introduce junior naval warfare officers, and now it's been expanded to kind of anyone in the Navy, to naval warfare and operations, code words and terms, unit organization, and for the most part, it's all classified or all unclassified. Sorry, we do have a classified version which we can play in secret spaces, but everything we do at Venture is unclassified. Just kind of talking big hands, small map. So we've just gone through a big rewrite of the rules to version 2.0 this past summer, where we incorporated the OWS engagement mechanics into the game, kind of working across the Canadian Armed Forces to make OWS the standard game. So Naval Kriegspiel is kind of that like stepping stone to get the students used to some of the mechanics before dumping them into the OWS, the beast that it is. So we'll give the students a set of orders. They'll run through the battle procedure, then we'll execute the game. Each game turn is broken into a few different phases. So we've got electronic warfare, where they can play electronic warfare cards, movement, so where they literally go up with a ruler and measure off and move their units. Detection, turning on different radars, both surface and subsurface and air, and seeing if they discover anything. Engagement, they get shoot at each other if they can, or if it's within their ROEs. And then we do a battle damage assessment where at the end of each turn, we kind of sum everything up, talk about what happened, and then they have 10 minutes to plan for the next turn. At the very end, we do an AR, sum up the whole game, talk about what worked, what didn't, have each team explain what their objectives were, what their plans were, where they feel like they succeeded and failed. On the standard charts, we use 1 millimeter as 1 nautical mile. One turn represents roughly 1 hour. So we're kind of representing the first 36 hours of combat or operations. And then we inject media, influence operations, and electronic warfare. So electronic warfare was also taken from OWS, which is kind of brought down a level as we're doing this at the tactical level. So we've got position navigation and timing, which can be spoofed or jammed. And then we also have TDL, which is either operating normally or compromised. The students can affect electronic warfare through cards. There's about 15 different cards. They get to sort through at the beginning of each game, and they can pick three or four, depending on what the scenario is. And they're a one-time use card. So having that operational or theater level asset assigned to them for, however, whatever amount of time is stated on the card. And then after that, it's gone and they've moved on to the next theater. As you can see for the cyber attack there, disrupting position navigation and timing. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So we're just trying to teach the students that, hey, you might execute something or plan to execute it and have your whole plan built around that one piece of it working. But, if you roll a D10 and you get a 5, nothing's happening then. And then on the bottom there, we've got the information operations and influence warfare cards. So teams get their cards for destroying a enemy unit. And if destroy a ship, you get two cards. Just shoot down an airplane, you get one card. Basically, they draw blind from a deck, and everything in there, yeah, is influence operations and IW and IO that is going on around the world now. So just to introduce to the facts, introduce to the students that, hey, if you have your cell phone on and you send a picture that's geotagged, that could end up killing you, or dating apps and, coordination information campaigns, just everything that's going on out there. And then we've got an influence tracker that kind of tracks how the world's seeing the conflict in general. And that can, yeah, really shape what's going on. We also have intelligence injects as well. So again, the sub-lieutenant I had working for me developed all these. But these are tweets and recce photography. The bottom one, or the one in the bottom left corner there, is AI created of three troops launching suicide drone boats, with all the date and time stamps and everything. Some of them it's put it in Zulu, so we try to see if the students can catch that, and about looking at like the small bits of detail, and if they've got a picture of like the submarine slipping at a certain time, we hope that they build the datum from where that submarine left, and they might be able to figure out where it's operating. We usually catch them out. They'll just be like, "Oh, it's 20. That picture was taken at 12:57, and it's 14, almost 1500 right now. So it's only been 2 hours since that picture was taken. In reality, the picture was taken, 15 hours ago instead of 2 hours ago, sort of thing." And then we inject these throughout the game, just kind of when White Cell sees fit, whether it be during their planning or once the game's actually executed. Just comparing version 1 to version 2. So version 1 was based around six-sided die, but the students kept wanting more and more, and I kept having to make up different rules and everything. And then I played out ODS, and I was like, this will solve all my problems. Um, but yeah, so version 1 was very basic. Version 2, we've basically taken the OWS unit cards and expanded them, and then brought it down to the tactical level for the like allocation of missiles and everything. The game is all our operations are set, or at least the scenarios we do are set in 2040. So it is kind of future proof, but we do have current fleet as well as future fleet for most nations. We've got about 300 something different units. So we can trial different scenarios and different combat formations as needed. So there's a game all laid out. Any good war game, you got your chart on the table, and then your markers, counters, models. So we use 20 millimeter tokens. Some of them right there. Dice with yeah, same as OWS. So D4 for least lethal, all the way up to D20 hypersonics. Then they'll get given an operations book, which has the rules, their orders in it, and map of where their units currently are in station. Recce, like ship recognition or unit recognition pack in there. Some order sheets and planning chartlets, as well as all the unit tracking sheets, which was on the previous page. So each team is responsible for keeping track, or each commander is in chart responsible for keeping track of how long aircraft have been out, how many salvos have been fired, what ships have damage, all that good stuff. And then we also give them battle procedure sheets, which are the same ones that our lieutenant commanders and lieutenants use for their operational planning. On the table there, you can kind of see the like tweets and newspapers spread out around. So we update those every single day for the scenarios. Sometimes students don't notice. After the second day, if no one's noticed, we just kind of hint at them that, hey, look at everything, because everything in the classroom is designed to kind of feed into the scenario, and we want them to be paying attention to their surroundings and picking up as much information as they can. We also have like overhead projector sheets that we've drawn on new battle positions and everything. So as the games progress, new territories occupied or taken back by NATO, that's played out on the map and will affect where units can deploy or where they can't. It was kind of happening naturally for the first few courses we ran. Students were organizing themselves in the composite warfare doctrine, which is how NATO task groups defend themselves, fight and defend themselves, and organize themselves for battle. So we built it into the rules and just added that extra teaching points for all the students. So They all get to wear patches. They get to like embody the different composite warfare commanders. Yeah, you got the composite warfare commander, anti-submarine warfare, anti-surface, anti-air, information warfare commander. We also have strike, and then can't remember what the last one is, but it'll come to me. But there's seven different warfare commanders that they can um, that they play through, and each game we have them rotate and take on different positions. And the students get to wear patches, and everyone loves a good patch. Um, there's our big chart. So yeah, it's 20 by 30 foot print of Vancouver Island and the surrounding waters. And yeah, that's where everyone gets to come and live out their Battle Atlantic dream, pushing small ships around on a big chart. It is made on banner material, so like PVC can roll up. It's three different 5 foot strips, so kind of easy to store. We've got a bunch of different ship models and aircraft models. All the ships are at 1/1100 scale, and the aircraft are all 1/300 scale. We've got different sticks, so we can put them at different heights and everything. And when we're playing on there, we use that 1 centimeters, 1 nautical mile. This is kind of more of a showpiece that we break out. We've only played a few games using it, but whenever we've got like open houses or stuff like that, we'll bring this out and kind of get everyone out there rolling some dice and having some fun. So we've got the base set of rules, and then we've got kind of advanced expansion packs or bolt-on packs for it. And one of them is an advanced anti-submarine warfare scenario, where there's a few subs out there, and then NATO task group is trying to fight their way in. We use the just a strip of the big chart in 3D models, and on here we really kind of get down into how hard and how difficult it is to find and prosecute and kill a submarine if need be. Each team that has a submarine, they've got like a water column, and they'll place the sub in a different layer of the water column. And then the like NATO will have to deploy their sonar buoys above the layer, below the layer in the thermocline. And there's a whole bunch of die roll modifiers depending on how fast people are going, whether they're streaming their like acoustic listening devices, where the submarine is, whether they have sonar buoys down, where the sub is, what the helicopters are doing, how fast everyone's going. And yeah, it's CAN Sub 4 has used it before, and our Canadian Submarine Forces used it, and then we kind of run it with the students as well. And we've used it to test some future capabilities, which has also been pretty fun. So moving on now, the other games we've got the operational wargame system. So I'm sure that needs no introduction. Um, Again, developed by the U.S. Marine Corps Warfighting Lab. It is slowly more people are getting it in Canada, and we're pushing to make it the base game across the Canadian Armed Forces. That hopefully every single unit can get a copy of it. Most of like our warfare centers have it. We have it out at Venture. A few of the helicopter squadrons do, but it's really piecemeal at the moment. But we're kind of pushing to make that the standardized game. Hopefully by sometime next year, we'll have made quite a bit more progress on that. There's just a few of the students playing it. Yeah, it just takes them up to that next level, which is really great, especially when they've played Naval Kriegspiel and then stepping up, they're just looking at that next level in the higher picture and just trying to figure out what higher commanders are doing and how their tiny little ship plays into the bigger picture. Usually for a lot of scenarios, we'll add Canadian assets just to get that student buy-in a little bit more. But yeah, they really learn how big the ocean is and how small ships are, which is good. And then we have Aftershock. So we did have it as a mainstay for the Introduction to Naval Operations course. We currently don't have it as part of um, the NWO basic course, but we are looking to put it back into kind of our NWO PQ junior lieutenants course. Yeah, so that they still will get that disaster tie-in. So it's a board game that's all about humanitarian disaster response. It is modeled on the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami and 2010 earthquake. It was developed in Canada at McGill University by Rex Bryan. And it forces students to adapt to situations that they're not comfortable with. It's a hard 2 hour time limit, and the game ends at 2 hours, whether they've completed it or not. And at the beginning, only explains some rules, but as the game goes on like a real disaster. You show up, you have no idea what's going on, and then as the chaos kind of starts to sort itself out, you figure out what's going on. They can figure out how to solve the problem. Is we've done it at the junior officer level and then at our operations room officer course as well. So people who've been in the or in the Navy for 8 to 12 years and are learning how to fight the ship and learning planning and the OPP or the operational planning procedure, learn it properly. We've had them play it, and it's just kind of interesting to see how people with no experience execute it compared to those who have a whole bunch of experience and actually execute the planning. Um, yeah, will like I'll play the sounds of people screaming in the background and start hitting tables if they're going too slow. And we'll like set up a little media corner, and we'll do this for Naval Kriegspiel as well. But we'll set up like a media table where every few turns we'll have the commanders or the information warfare officers from both sides have to go and basically answer PR questions and put out press statements based on how the operation or how the emergency is going for their side. And then everyone in the room gets to ping them questions. And we try to bring in SMEs as well for that and other officers around Venture to ask those questions to just kind of make them realize that nowadays, when you go to sea, it's not just you and your ship's company out there. Everyone's tracking what you're doing, and the world, like what your ship does, can influence how the world can see Canada. Yeah, so we had Command Modern Operations when we were executing it. You're executing it for the Introduction to Naval Operations course. Would have the students run through 30 tutorials and scenarios. We used it to really round out the tabletop experience, whereas when we were doing the Naval Kriegspiel tabletop game, they could only do, one scenario at a time. But if they failed at a mission in Command Modern Operations, they could just go right back and execute it again and again and again until they figured out what they're doing wrong. It has a huge unit recognition database, probably one of the best unclassed ones out in the world. So students could figure out like different MCO or sensor ranges, weapons ranges, all that good stuff. It uses the same symbology, code words, and terminology for the most part that we use on the ships. And then we tied in with YouTube and discussions. So also during Naval Kriegspiel tabletop game, we'll use YouTube. So student execute a harpoon strike or carry out a harpoon strike, we will then watch a harpoon strike on YouTube just so they can make that connection between the token they just like moved across the table and the dice they rolled, what the actual kinetic effects look like. We'll do the same for torpedoes and aircraft, and just so they can make that connection. And it keeps it a little bit more exciting as well. So the challenges that I've had being taken seriously. I'm sure all war gamers have as well when they're trying to get things going. The RCN had no wargaming capability before we stood this up, and no educational wargaming at all. The Maritime Warfare Center has some tactics wargaming and like analytical wargaming, but even then, there was not a lot being done coming out of like the GWAT era. But now, yeah, when I was trying to get going, it was like, oh, you're just going to play Dungeons and Dragons. Oh, you're just going to get together and roll dice and play Axis and Allies. So I'm sure most people who've tried to get wargaming briefed up higher have experienced. But after I played a few games, after I got the big chart and got a bunch of senior officers around it, they started taking it a little bit more seriously. And then that ties into the culture. The Canadian Armed Forces, the RCN, Canadian Army, Canadian Air Force, we don't have that wargaming culture, which has been quite a problem. It is changing, thankfully for the better. But yeah, it's still an uphill battle. And that's one of the big things that we're trying to do by introducing junior officers to wargaming early on in their career. It is something that they will hopefully take through the rest of it. And, in 2 or 3 generations, it will be something that's just done standard practice. Rank, when I started this as an OF1, so I was acting sub-lieutenant, and definitely it was just what's that, stupid acting sub-lieutenant trying to do? He just wants to play D&D all day. That was definitely an uphill battle, but thankfully got some buy-in and was able to prove that no, it's actually some good use. And then silos as well. So uh, across the CAF, as I'm sure most organizations, huge silos. The RCN, we're two coasts, East Coast and West Coast. There's 6,000 kilometers between us. So just trying to break down the silos within the Navy before trying to figure out what the Army's doing and what the Air Force is doing. We do have a joint warfare center with a few war gamers there, but they're located in Ottawa, so 4,000 kilometers away from us. And just trying to have that connection and create that community among everyone and trying to figure out what everyone's doing and not, duplicating effort. Um, Thankfully, due to some like hard charges in the army, it's starting to, we're starting to all figure out what each other's doing, and then connections north as well come together every year. Just in the picture there, we've got it was for the anti-submarine warfare scenario, but that Halifax is Halifax class frigate in the front there is fighting off two hypersonic missiles, and then behind it we've got a one of our new River class, which is based on the Type 26, fighting off two hypersonics as well. So just right there, you can kind of see the spread of current fleet and future fleet all mixed together. All the little blue pawns, those are sonar buoys. So we'll have the students laying out sonar buoy clusters as they're going along. So data and results from the Introduction to Naval Operations course. So we ran eight of them, 8 or 10 of them, somewhere around there. And about three, yeah, we probably had 150 students come through in general, junior officers. The majority of them were between like a week and 3 weeks right out of basic training. So got them as soon as they came to the coast with no experience, very little experience in the military in general, and absolutely no experience in the Navy. Um, but yeah, we had students, they started to apply lessons learned and develop solutions that were that were similar to real tactics and SOPs. We couldn't obviously tell them that what they're doing is very similar to what we do in real life, but it was interesting to see students who, again, no experience whatsoever, have never gone to sea, to 3 war games later, we're coming up with things that we actually do in real life just through trial and error. At the end, like I mentioned, they were given a surprise exam. That was the Naval Warfare Officer Phase 4 warfare exam. So usually they would get given that exam after 60 plus hours of PowerPoint lectures, and they need a 70% or higher to pass. We would give it to them on the INO course after 24 hours of warfare learning. So that's wargaming with tabletop and computer-based, as well as those SME lectures. Yeah, and then the results. So fresh out of basic training, average score was 76. The average for the NWO4 questions, because we had to add a few extras, was 73 with a pass rate of 82%. Post NWO phase 2, getting ready to go to phase 3. There wasn't a lot of them, surprisingly. There's only about 7 of them, 6 or 7 of them. So 3 of them dipped it, and it really skewed my pass rate. And then we had post NWO 3s getting ready to go to NWO 4, which was our target audience, where they usually would have been taught warfare, basic warfare. And we had a 100% pass rate on that. So with an average score of 82, which is about the same that they were getting on the warfare exam after studying for it and having those 60 hours of dedicated PowerPoint lessons. So super happy to just see the results of wargaming and, saving a bunch of time and the students actually enjoying it instead of doing like the slow motion rock concert, trying to stay awake in the back of the class while clicking through PowerPoint. A few other results. So we've sparked that professional curiosity. The students are like they're searching things on their phone. They're trying to figure out, what the ranges of ships are. And if a student comes to me and be like, "Hey, sir, this weapon actually has this unclassified range of such and such," and it's correct and ties in, then we'll adjust it for that. And just that due diligence that student's done. Um, we don't we encourage them to use their cell phones and scroll the internet and try to figure out everything that's out there. And they are starting to watch, more naval stuff on YouTube, which is what we wanted. We also, for homework, we give them the Wargaming podcast that was done by Sky News earlier this year that talks about a Russian kinetic strike on the UK set in October of 2025, and just how that would roll out and take place. So on top of the naval aspect of it, it's the wargaming aspect of a bunch of a professional body carrying out um, a Matrix style war game. And so we can talk to the students about what a Matrix style war game is as we're doing a Kriegspiel style. Yeah, the students have fun and are excited about being a naval warfare officer. Our instruction days end at 1600, but we rarely secure before 1610, and the students just want to keep doing more and more, want to keep doing more and more turns, and like, please sir, can we finish what we're doing right now? And so it's pretty exciting that they're so bought into the scenario and trying to complete the objectives and try to figure everything out that they are happy to stay after hours to keep doing it. Um, we're the only like basic education school. So our development phase one, you do basic training, then you go to DP1, development phase one, school in the entirety of the CAF to be using educational wargaming, and it is written into our like training plan. So it's written into doctrine and policy that this will be used to help instruct naval warfare officers, which is a huge success. And I'm super happy about that. So the lessons are learned in safe to fail environments. One of the command scenarios is that uh, they had to hunt two Russian boomers off the coast of New York City, or I guess Soviet boomers off the coast of New York City. Um, it's like a 2.5 hour, 3.5 hour, or 3 hour long scenario in real life. And this one student spent like 2 hours and 58 minutes hunting for these two submarines, dropping sonar buoys, having aircraft do sweeps up and down, ships going back and forth, searching all sorts of different patterns, trying to find subs. Couldn't find it, figured that with only, 30 seconds left, stood up, said a few inappropriate words, just got pretty angry that he couldn't find the subs. And then 15 seconds later, submarines came up to missile depth and launched their ballistic missiles at New York City, flattening the city. So thankfully, it all happened in a safe to fail environment. And that conversation and that incident led to almost a 3 hour long discussion about why submarines are so dangerous and why what we do is so important and how we need to hunt submarines and just all the difficulties that go along with it. And you can never stop if you know that a submarine's in the area. You can't just give up. And so to commemorate that, they created that patch because students love patches and pretty happy with it. And then yeah, the one below it is F-35 dropping some D-20s on a Gorshkov there. So again, a pretty great patch. So the future, looking forward for HMCS Venture with regards to wargaming, we're working on developing a Introduction to Naval Operations Block 2, which will solely be focused on the operational wargame series and just really getting everyone clued up on that. We're starting to include wargaming into other courses. So our professional lieutenant's course that I talked about, the NWO-PQ course, where after you've finished at Venture, you go to sea for a certain number of bridge hours, get your qualifications, then you come back to HMCS Venture for like a consolidation course. Once you graduate, you get promoted to lieutenant. We've incorporated wargaming into that. We're looking at incorporating it to our director level courses, so above water warfare, below water warfare, and then a few other different courses that are out there as well, continuing to support the fleet and other CAF organizations. So as I mentioned before, support Can Sub 4 with a submarine search and rescue war game. We've done some future capability war games as well. We've had our maritime helicopter squadrons and our long range patrol aircraft squadrons as well come down to help or kind of as part of their training and just introduce wargaming to them in hopes that they'll build it into battle rhythm, which it looks like it will be happening. The goal would be that once every 6 months or once every year to get Army, Navy, Air Force all together to play like a 4 or 5 day long war game, just kind of get everyone on the same page, talking in the same room for the discussions that come out of it and all the different capabilities that we can hopefully get out of it. And then again, yeah, trying new wargaming capabilities, different games, seeing how we can use them in different ways. So yeah, please, if you have any questions, bottom left or bottom right there is an article that was published in the Peruvian Naval Journal last year, 2 years ago. It's basically this slideshow in about 15,000 words with it dives deeper into the data from the Introduction to Naval Operations course and a few other things that we've done. But yeah, there's my email address if you'd like to reach out to me. Yeah, any questions?
Please relay your questions in the chat.
Let's see, is it okay if I close out of the PowerPoint? I just can't
Yeah,
see
absolutely.
the chat. Yeah, I can't see any of the,
I don't think that we have any questions
nope.
yet. Michelle, would you mind typing your question in the chat? To the folks that have raised their hands, please type your questions in the chat. Okay, now you should be able to type them. There we go. We've got a question from Colin. How much exchange of wargaming lessons and ideas is there between various CAF training units, and what sort of lessons and ideas are being exchanged?
Yeah, so there's been quite a bit recently, over the last year, mostly because of Connections North. Um, and yeah, we made that community. So between the Army, I'm fortunate to one of the one of the main proponents of it was my troop commander back when I was in the Army many years ago. So we've done a fair bit of exchanging of what's been going on and the use of it. And then what sort of lessons ideas, mostly about how we can get it like quantified into training and the best use cases for it. Unfortunately, there hasn't been a lot else in the naval side that we've been talking about. But a lot of lessons and training ideas have come from like the Norwegians, the French, the Germans, and the UK, how they use it, what how they're executing it, how they're using it, what struggles they've had have kind of been the big ones. And then I have not looked at ARG Hunt, um, but yeah, that would be. I'm going to add it to my list and I want to check it out for sure.
Oh, Luke, before you answer the questions,
Yep.
could you please read them out loud as well?
Okay. Yep. Yep. Sure can. Yeah. So, from Frank Cowan there, have you looked at ARG Hunt from the Center for Naval Analysis as it is a COTS option for to teach counter ISR? I haven't looked at it. Didn't even know it existed, but I'm definitely going to add it to the list now, and I want to go check it out for sure. And then from Michelle, the white cell that is making adjustments on the fly for injects. Do you see a common trend of when and what kind of injects they're pushing, or does it seem to be completely unique to each run in class? Um, it ebbs and flows. We'll get like a bunch of two or three classes where we'll see the same kind of problems, and then I'll adjust the rules to make those injects not be a problem anymore, and then it'll be the like the trend will kind of go away, and then a new group will come in, a new cohort will come in, or generation of like naval warfare officers, and we'll see a new kind of set of injects and trends that we need to address. It really ebbs and flows with the students. So for the Introduction to Naval Warfare, Naval Operations course, the students that we were having had very little experience in the military. So there wasn't a lot of injects that they had, and it was more like people commissioning from the ranks. But now we have students who've spent a significant amount of time on OJT at sea, and they're bringing uh, different injects to the game, as well as coming back for that NWO PQ course, their lieutenant's course. So these students have deployments and operational experience. So again, it's kind of bringing new levels in. And then definitely at the operations room level course, completely different. So yeah, a lot of that gets written down and gets adjusted. We kind of have like bolt-on rule sets for depending who the audience is to kind of make those injects a little bit easier to deal with. Then for Dave there, at one point in the 70s and 80s in the Canadian Armed Forces, we were trying to homogenize the services. I take it that now that Navy is definitely the Navy and the Army, etc. So we're still under the Canadian Armed Forces writ large, but yes, the Army is the Army, the Navy is the Navy, the Air Force is the Air Force, but we do have the Joint Warfare Center in Ottawa and joint operations, and basic training is still done under a joint organization. So Army, Navy, Air Force all do the same basic training. And then like joint staff college, we only have one staff college, and all that sort of stuff. Let's see. Then David, what are your thoughts on preemptive strikes in wargaming, efficiency, ROE, and repercussions? So for the scenarios that we use, we don't allow preemptive strikes unless it's dictated in their ROEs. We've kind of built it for like the scenarios to get all the teaching points that we need covered. But if the students see that their ROEs are too restrictive and aren't carrying out strikes or kind of getting where I need them to be, um, I'll allow them to, launch preemptive strikes, just so we can kind of get the ball rolling. But if they do break their ROEs and execute the strikes, then we do have like a world opinion bar, or an influence tracker to basically see how the world, and other the UN and other organizations are seeing their the operations take place, or the Canadian public, for example. And if they start carrying things or executing things that are against their ROEs, then we'll start swaying the public against them. And in some games, like uh, in some scenarios, if you hit -5 influence, then all of a sudden your German allies or British allies are like, nope, we're not doing this anymore, and you'll lose those assets, and we'll just start taking away things from them. Or one of the crews they mutiny because they don't want to support the operations anymore. So what sort of from Colin Darlington there? What sort of champions are you receiving from flag officers? Quite a bit. So Admiral Topsy, who is the commander of the Royal Canadian Navy, he supports this. Admiral Kurtz, who is commander Atlantic, she supports it. Captain Mike Stephenson, who is commander of Naval Personnel and Training Group, very much supports it as well. So I'm very, very lucky within the RCN to have a lot of stars or maple leafs in our case supporting me, thankfully. And then Dave there, do you have any commercial off-the-shelf games that you would recommend as playable and of learning value? So there's a submarine game. I'll just search it up quickly. But so Littoral Commander, excellent game. You can get a lot of learning out of that. Captain Sonar is a excellent commercial off-the-shelf naval war game. It's basically two teams pitted against each other in submarines and kind of like a double blind battleship trying to hunt each other down. It's excellent in showing why we have certain procedures on the bridge and team management, communication, and trying to fight the battle while moving the ship and conducting battle or damage control and all sorts of fun stuff like that. Um, yeah, it's kind of the main ones we use. There's obviously OWS. Um, I'm blanking on the stack of games I have on my shelf right now. But I will, once this gets uploaded to YouTube, if I come up with any more, I'll put it into the chat there. Question from Colin. You mentioned an operational context for some games. Do you have any games that provide a strategic context or otherwise introduce the basics of strategy? Yes, so when we kind of talk about the Naval 101 lecture at the beginning and through the game, I'll talk about like the tactical level, operational level, the strategic level, and then the logistics level of warfare as well. Kind of big hand, small map. So we have, when we give them their set of orders, we give them a full set of situation, mission execution, and kind of show how the orders they're getting, how their strategic commanders have like parse down those orders, and we kind of walk through the whole steps that go from, you know, NATO task group or NATO task force so and so is going to counteract the invasion of island X. How that comes down to HMCS Calgary is going to provide anti-air warfare or anti-submarine warfare in support of Objective X. Let's see. So Dave again, based on the drone boats being launched, I would suppose the Ukrainian experience against the Russian Black Fleet is of interest to your students. Yes, it is. So we have included Russian, or sorry, not Russian. Well, we have included Russian Shahad drones, suicide drones, and we have included Ukrainian, the Sea Babies and their drone boats that are being used. We also have undersea drone capability and air and surface drones that are used in the game. So we do have the students already kind of looking ahead to what's going on. And every day during the course, we talk about, kind of the top three events of the past like 4 or 5 months in the naval warfare world, just to kind of keep um, the students, clued into what's going on out there. And hopefully that sparks that professional curiosity that they're going to look at it more themselves. Colin, in the AR, do the students get the opportunity to self-criticize? Oh yeah, we sure do, or they sure do, and we want them to self-criticize. If they won't, their colleagues obviously will. But again, it's a safe to fail environment, so yeah, they can say anything they want. They can talk about why they think their plan didn't work, what they could have done better, and we want them to. Um, Alan, do you see any learning outcomes, effects on playing, the aftershock on the players, thinking more about second and third order effects? Speeding up the OODA loop applies to crises, but can also circuit long-term thinking vis-a-vis short and long-term pain. Yes, it. So for the students who are fresh off basic training, when they execute the game, they it's very like short term. They are responding to the immediate emergencies, not thinking about the like, well, if we put all our resources to putting out fires and dealing with riots, then we're not going to build up our logistics and infrastructure, and that bites them in the behind in the long term. And they usually end up losing. Whereas the more senior, like our operation rooms officers who have done the planning and have more experience, they every single time have focused almost on establishing logistic nodes right away, even though they may lose, uh, a few cities or towns in the scenario to fires potentially. In the long run, the fictitious country is usually better off because they can get more logistics in to help support. Yeah, the tyranny of logistics for sure. And that's one of the big things. That's one of the big takeaways that the students usually have on the NWO basic course. Well, there's kind of three main takeaways, is that the ocean is very, very big and ships are very small and move very slowly. more missiles is always better, and then logistics, trying to RAS at sea and uh, yeah, not being able to rearm your weapons at sea or rearm missiles at sea is a huge thing. They always ask. So when do we get like where do we go to reload or what's the magic like Hollywood reload? It's like ah, that's not happened. If you fired every single salvo in the first turn of the game, that's it. Your ship's Winchester and is out of the fight for now. Alan, do you close the loop on game effectiveness? That is, does the analysis and learning outcomes themselves get analyzed to see if you need different kinds of games to help advance mill decision making? It does. So we've been kind of tracking everything that's happened in all the games and then building and looking to establish basically a battle rhythm that these students will come through throughout their career to help them, develop their OODA loop in critical thinking and that planning procedure at a more junior level as they go along. Now that we've kind of like got a nice foothold established in the educational wargaming. We're looking, well, I'm looking at hopefully getting like our defense DRDC, so Defense Research Council of Canada, basically our defense scientists, getting one of them to come out and kind of track everything and do their actual science stuff and yeah, apply more, apply a more scientific approach to it instead of just, Sub-Lieutenant Brannigan being like, oh yeah, I think now the students are kind of mastered this game, they should be moving on to this one and going in their different, down kind of the different paths that they could go down. But yeah, the students are, when they finish the NWO basic course, they're excited about wargaming. So I tell them about OWS, I tell them about Command, I kind of introduce them to all the games I can that are out there. And then we have them back to play as much as we can, just so that they can kind of help, develop their battle planning procedures. Colin, do you introduce issues with engineering casualties, ships operating at less than 100%? Yeah, we do. So if a ship takes a missile hit, um, then if it's like above water, we'll roll a D6, 1 to 3, they've lost their air search radars, 4 to 6, they've lost their surface search radars, fire control radars, all that good sort of stuff. We do have kind of a damage control model that's built for it, but that really bogs down the game. And if certain organizations want to focus on a ship taking damage and looking at the damage control, then we're happy to go down that route. But for the NWO basic, which is like ships the ship has been hit by 1 missiles or 2 missiles, um, then yeah, hit by 1 or 2 missiles, then okay, now they're doing their damage control. They can't move for 2 turns while they try to figure themselves out. Um, then what about entering the battle? Yep. So we have them enter the battle with sometimes they won't have all their ammunition, sometimes they'll be low on fuel and we'll have to go RAS. We'll have ships at different like states of readiness. So sometimes they won't be able to respond to missile threats as quickly or threats that are out there as quickly. Um, yeah, the world's really the oyster when it comes to that. And we can, start taking away systems depending on what the client wants beforehand. For like the NWO basics, we give them everything 100% all the time, except for different fuel states. We'll give, HMCS Ottawa's at 60% fuel. She has to go RAS, but your tanker's 100 nautical miles away, and they've got to kind of build that into their planning as well. And then Jack Keen, what was the name of the first Commander game you mentioned earlier? Um, was it Captain Sonar? Was that the one, the submarine one? And then what do you want next for? So thanks, Alan. Yeah, so next for Naval War Games for the CAF, I would love to have a joint Army, Navy, Air Force game, bring down our Maritime Helicopter Squadron, Long Range Patrol Aircraft Squadron, at least on the West Coast, bring like Land Forces Pacific out, maybe some people from Edmonton, and run through a game with all the all the different elements represented, and then also establishing a naval educational wargame center of excellence. It hasn't been quantified yet or written down in doctrine. I push for it every time I send up a briefing note, but yeah, that's where I would like to um, see it go next. And then yeah, working from there, basically replicating what we have on the West Coast on the East Coast. That is that is the because that capability isn't stood up out there. We're slowly working on it, but having creating someone like me out there to be able to run games for the East Coast fleet as well. Oh, before Captain Sonar, it's Littoral Commander was the other one.
All right, any additional questions? All right, Luke, it looks like we have exhausted our attendees' questions, but I wanted to thank you so much for this great presentation. And to all of our attendees, it looks like Dave might have an additional comment. There's a big battle simulation center for Lewis, and Canadian units have participated in the past in here at Princess Paths and even the Canadian First Division.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Dave, for the last comment, and thank you to all of our attendees for your insights and for the questions. And I look forward to welcome you all again to our upcoming webinar. And thank you once again, Luke.
No worries. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, and please, again, we're trying to build this community. So anything else, just drop me an email there, or you can find me on LinkedIn as well. Or if you happen to be in Verona for Wargaming NATO, please come and say hi.
Perfect. All right. Have a good
Yeah.
evening, everyone.
Cheers. Thank you.